It's June 23rd, 2023. And as I speak, the war in Ukraine continues with various online drama and undoubtedly loss of life. This is quite possibly the closest the human race has come to global thermonuclear war ever. It's probably the closest overall military confrontation between the United States and Russia, the two major nuclear powers in the world. To remind people of how powerful a nuclear weapon is, a very small nuclear weapon like the one used on Hiroshima in World War II is about equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT and can cause the same damage as a major World War II air raid with conventional weapons, destroying much of a city. Modern weapons are thermonuclear weapons. The really big ones are about 1,000 times more powerful than the weapons dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So one very large, let's say 10 or 20 megaton thermonuclear weapon can destroy a large city like New York City. It could destroy a great fraction of the Silicon Valley where I live, for example, San Jose and its environs. It's more likely this would be done by multiple smaller weapons, each of which in the range of perhaps 500 kilotons, which is over 20 or 30 times more powerful than the weapons used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A major nuclear exchange between the United States and Russia would probably kill hundreds of millions, perhaps billions, or even wipe out the entire human race through scenarios like nuclear winter or extreme radiation or simply unknown effects of nuclear weapons and nuclear war. We have never fought a nuclear war in the entire known history of humanity. We don't know what they would do. There have only been a few hundred tests in remote areas, such as parts of the Pacific and Siberia. It's quite possible we don't really know what would happen in major ways. For some strange reason, we are engaged in a massive confrontation, ostensibly over Ukraine and over seemingly eastern regions of Ukraine, Luhansk, the Donbass, etc. What I want to talk about here is the dangers of the way the U.S., and I'm in the U.S., so maybe I can have some influence on Americans, the dangers of the way that we're talking about how we would respond to a use of tactical nuclear weapons, which is a euphemism for smaller bombs like the one that obliterated Hiroshima, in the conflict. Russia has been threatening to do something with them for some time, hasn't so far done anything. They say they're putting tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. Who knows what they're really doing? What is the U.S. response to that? A lot of the rhetoric from top figures like General David Petraeus or Senator Leslie Graham or many, many others seem to simply dismiss that. Either they won't do it, or if they do it, the message that is being sent is, well, we'll just escalate. We won't back down if they use tactical nuclear weapons. Why would Russia use tactical nuclear weapons? Most likely in an attempt to send a signal to the U.S. that they really mean business, that if we keep pushing, they're going to use non-tactical nuclear weapons, strategic nuclear weapons, come at us with these intercontinental ballistic missiles and all that that means. So if the message is clear from the United States that tactical nuclear weapons, the use of small nuclear weapons doesn't mean anything to us, we don't care, we'll only escalate or simply ignore it, strangely enough, then what should Russia do? If they feel pushed too hard, they're not going to go through a warning stage where they use tactical nuclear weapons, because we have convinced them that that will just make matters worse or do nothing at all. Rather, they need to do something sort of like hitting a mule over the head with a 2x4 several times to get our attention that they really mean business. What then can they do? A massive nuclear assault, at least on Ukraine, killing much of its population and completely destroying its military and industrial base. In my video I did a few weeks ago about how a nuclear war could break out, this is what I show. I don't show Russia using tactical nuclear weapons. Even then, a month ago, the US had made it clear, at least publicly, that we don't care about that. We're not going to be backing down because they use tactical nuclear weapon. The Russians are idiots. So the likely way to respond to that kind of rhetoric is to kill tens of millions of Ukrainians or Poles or Romanians or whomever, and demonstrate with massive loss of life and destruction of valuable industrial base that they mean business. Now, we might, like that proverbial mule hit with a 2x4, get the message and back down at that point. And that's a very difficult point to be in, because many people will have been killed. Many people will be very, very angry over what happened, frightened. People don't think clearly when that type of thing happens. They go into a fight or flight response. Fight or flight responses are not designed to deal with nuclear war or nuclear confrontations. They are designed, most likely, to deal with situations tens of thousands of years ago, where your little tribe of a few hundred people is attacked by another tribe of a few hundred people, or by animals like tigers or saber-toothed lions or wolves or things of that nature. These responses are adapted to conditions that are rare in the modern world, certainly in the United States and much of Europe and Russia. But the responses are built into us. Thus, the United States should maintain an ambiguous position on what we would do if Russia used tactical nuclear weapons. We should not be getting in their face and saying, tactical nuclear weapons are nothing. We're not worried about those. We're going to show you who's boss if you use those. Don't you dare use tactical nuclear weapons. Well, if Russia is trying to get a real message across, like, we really mean what we say, you've got to get out of Ukraine, then the response is clear. Tactical nuclear weapons aren't going to do it. A massive assault, or even a first strike directly against the United States, is what is required. I'm not advocating that anyone do any of these things, but I'm saying that the rhetoric is going to push Russia in this direction, or may push Russia in this direction. But we need to change our rhetoric. As I've argued before, we should shut this down as quickly as we can. We did not go to war with Russia over their invasion of Hungary in 1957, or the invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968, or the crackdown on solidarity in Poland in the late 79, 80, when I was a kid. We didn't do that because we thought what they were doing was great. We didn't do that because we didn't have concerns for the people in Hungary and Czechoslovakia and Poland, but because a nuclear confrontation, an actual nuclear exchange between the two countries, would kill huge numbers of Americans, huge numbers of Russians, and in each case, huge numbers of Poles, Hungarians, and Czechs, and Slovakians, or since they've split apart now. That's why we, at least hopefully, did those things. The situation is not that different here in Ukraine. We need to shut this down before it escalates out of control in some unpredictable way. And certainly rhetoric that we aren't going to be impressed if they use tactical nuclear weapons is not going to reduce that risk of escalation. It just means they'll jump over using tactical nuclear weapons to something much worse. The tactical nuclear weapon might kill hundreds of thousands to maybe 1 million people, like Hiroshima or Nagasaki, whereas the strategic nuclear weapons take out entire cities, population centers. They can kill tens of millions just with one bomb or a few bombs, few warheads, and they produce huge amounts of radioactive fallout, all kinds of unknown effects and known effects. So strategic nuclear weapon use is much worse. And with such a large loss of life, it's going to be harder to say, okay, time to stop. So there should be, in the short term, ambiguity about what we would do if a tactical nuclear weapon was used, our longstanding policy. And secondly, both nations, it is in the interest of Russia, it is in the interest of the United States, our populations, our people, and Poland, and Romania, and Ukraine, to stop this. Otherwise, we're just going to end up killing huge numbers of people, and that's a good outcome if it stops short of a nuclear war. If there's even a moderate nuclear war, it's just Ukraine and Poland get incinerated, that's okay. The US is okay, but that's like 40 million dead. And undoubtedly the radiation will go across the border into Russia and kill people and so on. So this should really, really be stopped. And this bizarre rhetoric, as if nuclear weapons aren't the most dangerous by far weapons we have, and what they could do, needs to be stopped. What can you do? Well, certainly there are things that haven't proven very effective so far, but still you can express your opinions here in the United States to your senators, representatives, and others. Perhaps there are other things that people can do. You can share this video, for example, or my video on how a nuclear war could break out. Those are possibilities. Maybe there are other things that people can think of that actually would be more effective. All of the lockdown and other stuff did stop after the bulk of the US population was vaccinated with the so-called vaccines, and the bulk of the US population got sick anyway. That's reality, and the leadership has never admitted, of course, that this failed. People have become emotionally invested in it, not just leaders, but people because of bizarre politics. I'm not sure who they're showing something to. We are going to show the Trump supporters that we are so much cooler than they are, because we are going to take that vaccine that Donald Trump wanted us to take. He locked us down. He said, take the vaccine. It's my vaccine. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And a large fraction of his supporters said, we don't trust Donald Trump. His judgment sucks. We don't want it. So what is being proved in that case? To whom, right? We have a similar situation here where somehow people are still clinging to this idea that Trump is somehow an ally of Putin. So they're going to have a global nuclear war to prove to Trump or to Trump's supporters who don't trust Trump that they are so much cooler than them. Hundreds of millions to billions of people dead because of what precisely? We need to shut it down now.
This concludes this video presentation. If you like this video, please click like. Please click subscribe and the notification bell if you would like to receive more content from us. You can avoid internet censorship by subscribing directly to our RSS news feed. Please consider sharing the link by email and on your website or blog, in addition to liking, upvoting, or sharing on increasingly censored, advertising beholden, big company social media. We have encountered such censorship. Mathematical software is developing algorithms and software to automate data analysis, reducing the risks of costly errors and increasing the predictive power of the results. You can support our work financially by subscribing on our Patreon page, https://www.patreon.com/mathsoft, or scanning the QR code in the lower right corner.